The sun rose lazily over the hillsides of Timberdale, bathing the colonial houses in golden light as they scattered like precious jewels throughout the historic town. Lily Sanders woke with a start, as always happened when dreams of black horses came to visit her. At 15, she had grown accustomed to the strange sensation that had accompanied her since childhood, a restlessness that seemed to come from far away, from a place her mind couldn't reach. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" asked Nancy, entering the room with a breakfast tray. Her brown eyes, always full of affection, showed the maternal concern that had never left her since they found Lily on that cold dawn 15 years ago. Lily turned to her adoptive mother, reading her lips with the ease of someone who had transformed this ability into art. "I dreamed about that place again, Mom, the forest, the horse. It was so real I can still smell the damp earth." Nancy sat on the bed, stroking her daughter's brown hair. She knew Lily had something special, a sensitivity that went far beyond her deafness. The girl captured vibrations that others didn't even notice, felt changes in the environment before they happened. "Maybe it's time we talk about some things your father and I have been keeping," said Nancy hesitantly. 15 years ago, when we found you—" "You never told me the whole truth, did you?" interrupted Lily, her hands moving quickly in sign language as she spoke. "I feel there's something more. Sometimes when I put my hands on the ground, it's like the earth speaks to me. I know that might sound crazy, but it's not crazy, sweetheart." Ethan entered the room holding a steaming cup of coffee. The history professor had always been a man of few words, but his eyes revealed wisdom accumulated over years. "Nancy, it's time. She needs to know." Lily felt her heart race. She got up from the bed and walked to the window, watching the movement of the awakening town. Below, tourists photographed the historic churches, merchants opened their stores, and life followed its normal course. But for her, nothing would be normal after that morning. "When we found you," Ethan began, "it wasn't by chance. You were in a specific clearing, a place the old residents of the region always considered sacred. There were signs that something extraordinary had happened there." Nancy opened an old drawer in the dresser and took out a small carved wooden box. "We found this with you. We never knew what it meant, but we kept it for when the right time came." Inside the box was a small crystal that emitted a soft, constant light. The moment Lily touched it, a wave of energy coursed through her body. The vibrations she had always felt intensified, and for an instant she had the sensation of being connected to something greater, deeper. "What is this?" she asked, amazed. "We don't know exactly," admitted Nancy, "but we always noticed that you reacted differently to certain things. As a child, you would cry whenever we approached certain places. And when you were calm, it was as if you were hearing something that we couldn't perceive." Lily closed her eyes, focusing on the sensations the crystal awakened. Images began to form in her mind: a dense forest, a horse with silver eyes, and, most impressively, the face of a girl who seemed identical to her own reflection in the mirror. "Is there someone like me?" she whispered, slowly opening her eyes. Ethan and Nancy exchanged meaningful glances. They knew this moment would come, but they weren't prepared for the intensity of the revelations that would follow. "We believe so," replied Ethan, "and maybe it's time for you to discover who you really are, Lily. Your journey is just beginning." The crystal pulsed in her hands, as if agreeing with the words of the man who had raised her with so much love. Lily felt that her life was about to take a completely new direction, and for the first time, the vibrations that had always accompanied her seemed to point to a specific direction. Spring Valley, a place she had never visited, but that her heart recognized as a home lost long ago. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The same morning that had awakened uneasiness in Lily found Ivy kneeling before a crystal-clear waterfall in the heart of Spring Valley. Her hands, immersed in the icy water, captured every vibration, every movement of the stones at the bottom of the river. For her, silence was not the absence of sound, but the presence of an ancestral language that few could understand. "Daughter of the Earth, do you feel something different today?" asked Mother Juniper, approaching with silent steps on the damp moss. The white-haired woman with deep eyes was respected throughout the region as a guardian of ancient knowledge. Ivy turned, her lips forming words that came from the heart. "Something has changed, Mother Juniper. The waters speak of energy that moves, as if someone had awakened after a long sleep." The elder nodded gravely. She knew this day would come. 15 years ago, when she found Ivy on her cabin doorstep, brought by a black horse that disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, she had understood that the girl was no ordinary child. "Come with me," said Mother Juniper, extending her hand. "Old Ben is waiting for us at the ancestor tree. It's time for you to know the whole truth about who you are." They walked along the winding trails that cut through the valley, passing medicinal plants that exhaled intense fragrances and moss-covered stones that seemed to hold ancient secrets. Ivy felt each step resonate through the soil, as if the earth itself was alive and aware of her presence. In the clearing where the imposing ancestor tree stood, Old Ben waited in silence. The man with sun-weathered skin and hands calloused by work on the land possessed wisdom that transcended any formal knowledge. "The girl is ready," he said without preamble. "The signs don't lie. The awakening has begun." Mother Juniper led Ivy to a niche carved into the trunk of the giant tree. There, protected for generations, rested a crystal fragment that radiated palpable energy. "This crystal was entrusted to our people long ago," explained the elder. "They say it is one of the guardians of the network that connects all the sacred points of our land. And you, my daughter, were born to be its protector." Ivy extended trembling hands toward the crystal. The instant her fingers touched it, an explosion of sensations swept through her body. She saw forests stretching to the horizon, crystals pulsing in unison across distant biomes, and most impressively, the face of a girl identical to her own. "I'm not alone," she murmured, tears streaming down her cheeks. "There's another like me." "Your sister," confirmed Old Ben, his voice heavy with emotion. "Separated at birth by forces you don't yet understand, but destined to reunite when the earth needs its daughters." Mother Juniper sat beside Ivy, wrapping her in a maternal embrace. 15 years ago, a man tormented by guilt left two special girls in a dark forest. One was brought to us by an ancestral guardian, the other was found by good people, completed Ivy, the visions still echoing in her mind. "I can feel her. She's confused but strong, and she also has a crystal." "The awakening of you both will activate other crystals scattered across the country," warned Old Ben. "But not everyone wants that to happen. There are dark forces that will try to prevent you from fulfilling your destiny." Ivy felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't fear of the unknown, but awareness that her life was about to change drastically. "What should I do?" she asked. "First, you must prepare," answered Mother Juniper. "Learn to control the power that the crystal has awakened in you, and then you must find your sister. Will she come here?" "Or you will go to her," said Old Ben, watching the clouds that were rapidly forming in the sky, as if nature itself was reacting to the awakening of the crystals. "Destiny has its own ways of reuniting what should never have been separated." Ivy held the crystal fragment against her chest, feeling its energy pulse in sync with her heart. For the first time in her life, she understood that she wasn't just a girl raised in the valley. She was part of something much greater, an ancestral force awakening to protect the land she loved so much. The reunion with her twin sister was just the beginning of a journey that would change not only their lives, but the very balance of the world around them. In San Francisco, in the gleaming offices on the 40th floor of a skyscraper in the Financial District, Calvin Sterling paced back and forth before the enormous windows that offered a panoramic view of the metropolis. At 52, the business magnate maintained an impeccable appearance, but his eyes revealed the weight of 15 years of remorse. "Mr. Sterling," said Helen, his personal secretary, entering the office with a folder in her hands. "The reports you requested on the anomalous seismic activities in West Virginia." Calvin stopped pacing and fixed his gaze on the woman. "Anything unusual?" Small vibrations registered in several regions, including Timberdale and Spring Valley. Scientists can't explain the origin or the pattern, replied Helen, noticing the pallor that took over her boss's face. Calvin knew exactly what that meant. 15 years ago, when he made the most difficult decision of his life, the woman who had given birth to his daughters had left letters explaining energy connections, ancestral crystals, and vibratory patterns. At the time, he had considered it all the delusion of a disturbed mind. Now he wasn't so sure. "Helen, cancel all my appointments for next week," he ordered, heading to the armored safe behind his desk, "and prepare the private jet. I'm traveling." As he opened the safe with trembling hands, Calvin removed a box he hadn't touched for more than a decade. Inside were letters written in delicate handwriting and ancient maps, marked with symbols he had never been able to fully decipher. "Miranda, why did you never leave me in peace?" he murmured to himself, holding one of the letters. Miranda Christine had been much more than a passing passion. She was a mysterious woman, descended from ancient lineages that kept secrets about the American land. When she discovered she was expecting twins, she spoke about prophecies and destinies, about girls who would be born with special gifts. The phone rang, interrupting his memories. The voice on the other end of the line made him freeze. "Calvin, we know you're investigating the vibrations." The voice was deep, controlled. "The Circle needs to talk to you." "I thought our partnership had ended years ago," Montgomery replied. Calvin, recognizing the man who commanded the most secret and powerful organization in the country. "Some partnerships never really end." "You know that very well," replied Montgomery. "Your personal experiments from 15 years ago are beginning to have consequences that affect our interests." Calvin clenched his fist. The Circle of Concrete had always been a shadowy organization, infiltrated into the highest echelons of power, interested in controlling natural and energy resources. When his daughters were born, he had sought their help to understand what was happening. But after separating the girls, he had severed all ties. "I have nothing more to do with you," said Calvin, trying to sound firm. "Of course you do. 2 special girls, 2 activated crystals, an energy network awakening. Did you really think you could abandon your responsibilities forever?" The call ended, leaving Calvin in a state of shock. He knew the Circle had monitored his daughters over the years, but he had always hoped they would remain safe from the organization's interests. He took his cell phone and dialed a number he knew by heart, but had never had the courage to use. "Detective Mitchell, this is Calvin Sterling. I need your help to find 2 people. They're my daughters." On the other end of the line, the private detective he had hired years ago to discreetly monitor the girls confirmed what Calvin already suspected. "They're fine, sir. Lily is still in Timberdale with her adoptive parents, and Ivy remains in Spring Valley. But, sir, they've changed." "What do you mean, changed?" "Strange events have been happening around them. Animals behaving differently, plants growing faster, people reporting unusual sensations. It's as if they were awakening something." Calvin closed his eyes. The moment he had always feared had arrived. His daughters were discovering their true powers, and that put them in mortal danger. "Mitchell, I need you to do one more thing for me. Protect them, at any cost. There are powerful people who won't hesitate to use these girls for their own purposes. And you, are you finally going to meet them?" Calvin looked out the window, observing the city he had conquered through ruthless decisions, but no business achievement compared to the desire to correct the biggest mistake of his life. "Yes, it's time for me to face the consequences of my choices. It's time to be the father I never was." As he put Miranda's letters in the folder, Calvin felt a determination he hadn't experienced in years. His daughters needed him, and this time he wouldn't run from his responsibilities. Night fell over Timberdale with unusual intensity. Lily was in her room, the crystal in her hands, when a powerful energy began to pulse through the mineral. The vibrations became so intense that she needed to sit on the bed to avoid losing her balance. "What's happening?" she murmured to herself, watching as the crystal radiated a silvery light that filled the entire room. She closed her eyes and concentrated, allowing the sensations to guide her. Suddenly her mind was invaded by vivid images: a crystal-clear waterfall, a girl identical to her kneeling before the waters, and the same energy she now felt pulsing with redoubled force. In Spring Valley, Ivy was experiencing exactly the same intensity of connection. Her crystal vibrated in her hands like a beating heart, and for the first time she managed to hear something that went beyond the vibrations of the earth. Sister. The word formed in her mind without her knowing where it came from. Are you there? In Timberdale, Lily gasped in surprise. She was certain she had heard a voice, not with her ears, but directly in her heart. I'm here, she responded mentally, without knowing. Exactly how, just allowing the connection to flow. Are you real? As real as you are, came Ivy's response. We are two parts of the same whole. I can feel your confusion, your search for answers. The two girls remained silent for a few moments, absorbing the magnitude of that impossible communication. It was as if 15 years of separation were being healed in a matter of seconds. Where are you? Asked Lily. In Spring Valley, West Virginia. And you? Timberdale, also in West Virginia. We're not that far from each other. Ivy smiled, tears of joy streaming down her face. Mother Juniper always said that when the time came I would know. I think the time has come. My adoptive parents also hid things from me. They knew this day would come, confessed Lily. We need to meet in person. Yes, but there's something else, warned Ivy, her connection with the earth allowing her to capture information that transcended common understanding. Dangerous people know about us. I can feel a dark energy moving, trying to locate us. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. What should we do? For now, we need to be cautious. But our connection is growing stronger. Soon they won't be able to keep us apart anymore. At that moment, the connection was abruptly interrupted. In both locations, the crystals simultaneously lost their glow, leaving the girls in a state of perplexity. In Timberdale, Nancy came running into Lily's room upon seeing the strange light emanating from there. Sweetheart, what was that? The whole house vibrated. Mom, I talked to her, to my twin sister, exclaimed Lily, her eyes shining with emotion. She really exists, and she's in West Virginia too. In Spring Valley, Mother Juniper found Ivy in a state of spiritual ecstasy. The connection happened, didn't it? Asked the elder, already knowing the answer. She's exactly as I always dreamed, replied Ivy, strong, confused, but full of love. Mother Juniper, I need to find her. And you will, my child. But first, you both need to learn to control these powers that are awakening. The energy you released today was felt in very distant places. Indeed, in San Francisco, Calvin received a call from Montgomery. The girls have made contact with each other, said the icy voice. Our sensors recorded unprecedented energy activity. They are more powerful than we imagined. Leave my daughters alone, replied Calvin, his voice laden with determination. Impossible. They represent a threat to our plans. Either you help us control them, or we'll take the necessary measures. Calvin abruptly hung up the phone. He knew time was running out. He needed to reach his daughters before the circle of concrete made its move. Meanwhile, in the mountains between Timberdale and Spring Valley, other crystals began to awaken in response to the twins' connection. The ancestral network was activating, and the earth itself seemed eager for the sisters' reunion. In her room, Lily held the crystal against her heart, whispering, "Hold on, sister. Soon we'll be together, and nothing and no one will be able to separate us again." In the valley, Ivy made exactly the same promise, sealing an invisible pact that transcended time and space. Destiny had set powerful forces in motion, and the reunion of the Daughters of the Earth was about to change everything. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. Dawn brought a dense fog that covered the roads of West Virginia like a protective mantle. Calvin drove his truck along the same route he had traveled 15 years ago, but this time with a completely different purpose. He wasn't running away from his responsibilities. He was running toward them. "Mr. Sterling," Helen's voice echoed through the vehicle's communication system. "We've received concerning information. Strange men have been seen in the vicinity of both Timberdale and Spring Valley." "They got there faster than I expected," muttered Calvin, accelerating the vehicle. "Helen, execute the emergency protocol we prepared. Transfer all resources to the security accounts." "Sir," The Circle may retaliate against your businesses. Let them retaliate, interrupted Calvin. There are things more important than money, much more important. In Timberdale, Lily woke with a sense of urgency that made her jump out of bed. The crystal, which she always kept nearby, pulsed with a different, more intense and alert energy. "Mom, Dad," she called, running to the kitchen where Nancy and Ethan were having coffee. "Something's not right. I feel like we're being watched." Ethan frowned. During his years as a history professor, he had learned to recognize when seemingly normal situations hid real dangers. "Lily, dear, maybe it's better if you don't leave the house today," suggested Nancy, noticing unusual movement in the street through the window. "I can't hide forever," protested Lily. "My sister needs me. I can feel that she's worried too." In Spring Valley, Ivy walked restlessly along familiar trails, accompanied by Mother Juniper and Old Ben. The nature around them seemed agitated. Birds were flying in erratic patterns and animals showed unusual nervousness. "They're coming," said Old Ben, observing the dark clouds forming on the horizon. "I can feel their dark intentions contaminating the air." "Who exactly are they?" asked Ivy, her crystal radiating heat against her chest. "Men who have forgotten they are part of the earth, not its owners," replied Mother Juniper. "They see power where there should be harmony, control where there should be balance." Ivy closed her eyes and focused on the connection with her sister. "Lily," she called mentally, "do you also feel the danger approaching?" "I feel it," came the immediate response. "Men in black suits are prowling around my town. My parents are scared." "We need to meet before they prevent our reunion," decided Ivy. "Where can we meet safely?" The answer came not from Lily, but through a shared vision, the same clearing where they had been separated 15 years ago, a place of ancestral power that would offer natural protection. "The separation clearing," said Ivy aloud. "You know this place?" asked Mother Juniper, surprised. "My sister showed me through our connection. It's where everything began, and it's where everything must be resolved." Meanwhile, Calvin was receiving concerning information through his contact with Detective Mitchell. "Mr. Sterling, they're not just watching. They're preparing to act. Teams of specialists are arriving in both towns with sophisticated equipment." "What kind of equipment?" "Devices to detect and suppress anomalous electromagnetic energies. It seems they want to neutralize the girls' powers." Calvin felt his blood run cold. He knew the Circle's technological capabilities. If they managed to suppress his daughter's gifts, they could capture them without resistance. "Mitchell, I need you to contact the girls' families. Tell them that the biological father is coming, and that they need to leave where they are immediately." "To where?" Calvin looked at the ancient map that Miranda had left, with symbols marking places of special power. His eyes fixed on a clearing, marked with a golden circle. The full moon clearing in the mountains between Timberdale and Spring Valley. It's a place of ancestral protection. In both towns, the message arrived almost simultaneously. Nancy and Ethan, though frightened, understood they had no choice. Mother Juniper and Old Ben had been preparing for the journey for years. "Time has come," said Mother Juniper to Ivy. "The reunion that Destiny planned can no longer be delayed." "I'm ready," replied Ivy, feeling a mixture of anxiety and expectation. In Timberdale, Lily hugged her adoptive parents with tears in her eyes. "You are and will always be my parents in my heart," she said, "but I need to discover who I really am." "We know, sweetheart," replied Ethan, "and we'll be here when you return." As both families prepared to leave for the clearing, the sky filled with heavy clouds, as if nature itself was preparing a dramatic stage for the most important reunion of their lives. Destiny had set all the pieces in motion, and nothing could prevent the daughters of the earth from finally meeting face to face. The full moon clearing remained exactly as Calvin remembered it, a perfect circle of moss-covered earth, surrounded by ancient trees that seemed like silent guardians. The light filtered through the canopy created an almost sacred environment, where time seemed suspended. Calvin arrived first, his steps hesitant on the soil he knew so well. 15 years ago he had left 2 innocent babies there. Now he returned to meet the extraordinary women they had become. "Please, Miranda," he murmured, looking at the sky. "Give me strength to face what I did." The crystals the girls carried began to pulse intensely as they approached the clearing, coming from opposite directions. Lily arrived first, accompanied by Nancy and Ethan, who maintained a respectful distance. When Ivy emerged from the trees, followed by Mother Juniper and Old Ben, the world seemed to stop. The two girls faced each other for the first time in 15 years, and it was as if they were looking at mirrors of their souls. "You," whispered Lily, tears immediately springing from her eyes. "It's me," replied Ivy, her voice broken by emotion. "It's us." They ran toward each other, meeting at the exact center of the clearing. The embrace they shared was more than physical. It was a reconnection of energy, of essence, of two halves finally becoming whole. The moment they touched, the crystals exploded in golden light, and a wave of energy traveled throughout the region. Trees swayed without wind, birds sang in unison, and the earth itself seemed to sigh with relief. "I always knew you existed," said Lily, holding Ivy's face between her hands. "Even when everyone said it was imagination." "And I always felt your pain, your search," replied Ivy, 15 years apart but never really alone. Calvin observed the scene from a safe distance, his heart shattered by remorse, and at the same time comforted by the beauty of the moment. Finally he gathered courage to approach. "My daughters," he said, his voice breaking. The girls turned simultaneously, their eyes meeting those of the man who had fathered them but never known them. For a moment the silence was absolute. "You're our father," said Ivy, not as a question but as confirmation of something her heart already knew. "I am," replied Calvin, tears streaming down his face, "and I'm the man who made the biggest mistake of his life by abandoning you." Lily studied the man before her, seeing not the monster she had imagined, but a man broken by the weight of his choices. "Why?" she asked simply. Calvin knelt before his daughters, placing himself in a position of total vulnerability. "Because I was afraid of what you represented, afraid of not being able to protect you, afraid of a world that wouldn't understand your gifts." He looked at the crystals that shone in their hands. "Your mother, Miranda, tried to explain to me about your importance, about the connection you had with the earth, but I was young, arrogant, and thought I could control the uncontrollable." "Where is she?" asked Ivy, her voice soft but laden with need. She left shortly after your birth. She said her mission was fulfilled, that you would find your way." Calvin removed a yellowed letter from his pocket. "She left this for you." With trembling hands, Lily took the letter and opened it. Miranda's words seemed to leap from the paper. "My beloved daughters, if you are reading this, it means the time of awakening has come. You are the guardians of the ancestral network, the bridges between humanity and the earth. Your gifts are not coincidence, they are purpose. United, you can heal what has been broken, restore what has been lost. But beware. There are those who want to use your power to dominate, not to harmonize. Trust each other, trust the earth. And remember, love is the most powerful frequency in the universe." As Lily read the letter aloud, translating into sign language so Ivy could follow, a dark presence made itself felt at the edges of the clearing. "How touching," a cold voice echoed among the trees. Montgomery emerged from the shadows, accompanied by men in black suits carrying strange equipment. Finally, the family is reunited. Calvin quickly stood up, positioning himself between his daughters and the newcomers. "You won't touch them," he declared, his voice carrying a determination he hadn't felt in years. "Oh, but we will," replied Montgomery, signaling to his men. "These two girls are the key to controlling a source of energy that can revolutionize the world. We cannot allow that power to remain in the hands of amateurs." The men's equipment began to emit a high-pitched sound, and Lily and Ivy felt their powers being suppressed. But when their hands joined, something extraordinary happened. "They don't know," said Ivy, smiling despite the danger. "Don't know what?" asked Lily. "That together we are much more powerful than the sum of our individual parts." The glow of the crystals intensified, and for the first time since they were separated, The daughters of the earth were ready to show the world the true power of unconditional love. The glow of the united crystals created an energy barrier around the sisters, causing the circle of concrete suppression equipment to fail one by one. Montgomery observed the scene with a mixture of fascination and irritation. "Impressive," he admitted, adjusting his impeccable suit. "But you still haven't comprehended the true magnitude of the situation." Lily and Ivy remained hand in hand, feeling the Earth's energy flow through them with an intensity never experienced before. It was as if 15 years of separation had created a pressure that now exploded into pure power. "What exactly do you want?" asked Lily, her voice echoing with an authority that surprised her. Montgomery smiled coldly. "Want to know the truth? The complete truth about who you are and why you were born?" "We already know who we are," replied Ivy, confident. "Do you? Then let me clarify some details that have certainly escaped your understanding." Montgomery gestured, and one of his men projected a holographic image in the air. "This is the energy network of planet Earth. See these points of light scattered across the continents?" The image showed brilliant lines connecting specific points around the globe, creating a complex and beautiful geometric pattern. "For millennia, this network has remained dormant," continued Montgomery. "But certain human lineages developed the ability to activate it. Your mother, Miranda, was descended from one of these lineages, and you two," he pointed to the girls, "are the only living people capable of fully awakening this network." Calvin stepped forward. "And you want to use my daughters to control this energy?" "Control?" Montgomery laughed. "No, Calvin. We want to save humanity." The statement surprised everyone present. Ivy and Lily exchanged confused glances. "What do you mean, save?" asked Ivy. Montgomery gestured again, and the image changed, showing climate data, deforestation, ocean pollution. "The planet is dying, girls. In 50 years, maybe less, Earth will no longer be habitable. But this energy network that you can activate, it has the power to reverse environmental damage, purify oceans, regenerate forests." He paused dramatically. "You could save billions of lives." "Then why pursue us like enemies?" questioned Lily, confused. "Because you're young, inexperienced. This network can't be activated in just any way. It needs to be controlled, directed by people who understand the global consequences." Montgomery came closer. "The circle of concrete brings together the best scientists, strategists, and world leaders. Working with us, you could really change the world." Mother Juniper, who had remained silent observing the scene, finally spoke. "Liar," her voice cut through the air like a blade. "You speak of salvation, but what you really desire is power over life and over other human beings." Montgomery turned to her, irritated. "An old woman who lives isolated in the forest is not qualified to—" "I am qualified because I know the truth you're hiding," interrupted Mother Juniper, walking to the center of the clearing. "The energy network cannot be controlled by technology or organizations. It responds only to balance, harmony, genuine love for the earth and all living beings." She turned to the girls. "That's why you were born deaf, my children. So you could hear with your hearts, not with your ears. So you would be guided by intuition, not cold reason." Mother Juniper's words resonated deeply with Lily and Ivy. They began to understand that their condition had never been a limitation, but rather a special gift. "And there's more," continued the elder, now addressing Montgomery. "You've hidden from them the most important part of the prophecy." "What prophecy?" asked Calvin, alarmed. Mother Juniper smiled sadly. "The prophecy that says to fully awaken the network, the Guardians must make a supreme sacrifice. They must choose between keeping their powers or permanently transferring them to the earth, losing them forever." The silence that followed was absolute. Montgomery had gone pale, revealing that she spoke the truth. "That's why you need to control them," accused Mother Juniper, "because you know that when the time for the final choice came, girls raised with love and wisdom would make the necessary sacrifice, but you cannot allow them to awaken the network if it means losing control over that energy." Lily and Ivy looked at each other, finally understanding the magnitude of their destiny. They weren't just guardians of the energy network, they were potential saviors of Earth, but the price would be giving up the gifts that made them special. "And if we refuse?" asked Lily. "Then the earth will continue to die slowly," replied Mother Juniper, "and your children and your children's children will inherit a devastated world." Montgomery, realizing he had lost control of the narrative, made a desperate signal to his men. "Take them! Now!" But when the men moved, Calvin stood between them and his daughters. "You'll have to go through me first." It was then that Lily and Ivy, hand in hand, felt the true extent of their powers manifest. The crystals didn't just shine, they sang, creating a harmony that made the entire clearing vibrate in unison with the heart of Earth. And at that moment, they knew exactly what they needed to do. The harmony of the crystals grew in intensity, creating waves of energy that spread through the forest like golden rings. Montgomery's men retreated instinctively, their equipment completely failing before the pure force emanating from the reunited sisters. Lily and Ivy looked at each other, their eyes reflecting the same deep understanding. Through the connection they shared, they communicated without words, making the most important decision of their lives. "We know what we must do," said Lily, her voice carrying a serenity that surprised even herself. "We always knew," completed Ivy, smiling through her tears. "Since we found each other again, we can feel the earth asking for our help." Montgomery took a desperate step toward the girls. "You don't understand. If you activate the network without proper scientific control, the consequences could be catastrophic." "The consequences are already catastrophic," replied Ivy, looking directly at him. "The difference is that you want to control the healing, while we want to offer it freely." Calvin approached his daughters, his heart breaking with the understanding of what they were about to do. "My daughters, you don't need to carry this burden alone. Let me help you somehow." Lily gently touched her father's face. "You already helped us, Dad. You brought us back to each other, and now you can help us by being the man you were always capable of being." "Protect the earth we're about to heal," added Ivy. "Use your influence and resources to ensure our choice isn't in vain." Mother Juniper approached the girls, placing a hand on each one's shoulder. "Are you sure? Once this choice is made, there's no going back. You'll forever lose the ability to hear the earth in the special way you always have." "But the earth will continue to live," said Lily, "and that's what matters. And other children will be born, with special gifts in the future," added Ivy. "Magic never completely disappears from the world." The sisters positioned themselves at the exact center of the clearing, where 15 years ago they had been separated. They raised the crystals above their heads, and for the first time the minerals touched. What happened next transcended anything anyone present could have imagined. A column of golden light shot from the crystals toward the sky, connecting with something far beyond the clouds. Simultaneously, roots of energy sprouted from the earth, spreading in all directions like a luminous network. "Can you feel that?" asked Lily, amazed. "The entire planet is awakening," replied Ivy, tears of joy streaming down her face. Around the world, in sacred places that had remained dormant for centuries, crystals began to pulse with renewed life. In the Amazon, century-old, trees radiated a soft green light. In the wetlands, the waters gained a crystalline glow. In the mountain ranges, entire mountains vibrated in harmony. Montgomery and his men watched in a state of absolute shock, realizing they were witnessing something that completely transcended their scientific understanding. "It's impossible," muttered Montgomery. "The amount of energy necessary to—" His words were interrupted when a wave of pure air swept through the clearing. The oxygen became cleaner, more vivifying. The plants around began to visibly grow, and flowers bloomed in a matter of seconds. "It's not impossible," said Old Ben, smiling through tears. "It's miraculous." Lily and Ivy felt their powers flowing out of their bodies, permanently transferring to the planetary network. It was as if they were emptying themselves of something that had always defined them, but at the same time filling with a deep and lasting satisfaction. "Are you afraid?" asked Lily to her sister. "No," replied Ivy. "I feel complete." When the energy transfer ended, The crystals disintegrated into golden dust that was carried away by the wind, spreading through the forest like a final blessing. The girls remained standing, but something fundamental had changed. The special connection they had always had with the earth had transformed into a more subtle, more human bond. "Is it over?" asked Lily, touching her chest where she had once felt the constant vibrations. "No," said Ivy, smiling. "It has begun." Around the world, the effects of the network's activation were already visible. Polluted rivers began to purify themselves. Devastated forests showed signs of accelerated regeneration. The air itself became cleaner. Montgomery, defeated but still not fully comprehending what he had witnessed, ordered his men to retreat. Before leaving, he turned to the sisters one last time. "You have no idea what you've just unleashed." "Yes, we do," replied Lily. "We've unleashed hope." Months later, Lily and Ivy lived together in a small house between Timberdale and Spring Valley, a place that symbolized the union of their two worlds. Although they no longer possessed the special gifts of before, they discovered that the love between sisters was a power of its own, different but equally transformative. Calvin became a dedicated environmental activist, using his fortune and influence to protect the areas where crystals remained active. Nancy and Ethan visited regularly, as did Mother Juniper and Old Ben, creating an extended family united by love and a common mission. And on full moon nights, when they walked through the same clearing where they had reunited, Lily and Ivy could still feel an echo of the ancient vibrations, no longer through supernatural powers, but through the eternal bond that unites all living things. The planet was healing, and they had chosen love over power. It was, after all, the most natural choice that two daughters of the earth could make.